Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Mathilde and I am in charge of marketing here at Amity. I'm very excited about today's webinar with Nils. Nils is an expert in customer success and he founded Glide Consulting about 2 years ago. And since then he's been helping a lot of companies with their CS organizations. So today's topic is a great topic and it's career development. So more specifically, how to grow your career in customer success. I know that a lot of people have a lot of questions about that topic, so we're very excited to hear what Nils has to say. In short, and Nils will be able to give you a lot more details, but he started as a CSM and in 2 years and a half, he was able to become VP of Customer Success. So before we get into that, just a couple of housekeeping notes for everyone. As usual, we'll be on Twitter, and please feel free to join the conversation using the hashtag CSWebinar or tag us using the handle @GetAmity or @Nils Vinje. And as usual, we'll also be doing a Q&A at the end of the session. So I think everyone can see a little chat box at the bottom left corner of their screen, and that's where you can put your questions at any time during the presentation. And at the end, Nils will come back and answer all of those. And as usual, we'll also be sending the slides to everyone in the next couple of days. So yeah, now without further ado, Nils.
Thank you so much, Matilda, for the intro. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wonderful to be with you today to talk to you about how to grow your career in customer success. See a lot of familiar names in the attendees list here and on our registration list, and so great to speak with those of you who I know personally, and great to meet those of you who I haven't had the opportunity to meet personally yet. So before we dig into how to grow your career in customer success, I wanted to start off by sharing a little bit about me personally. And I always like my audience to know a little something about me, and here's where we'll start, with my family. This is my wonderful wife, Annie, my beautiful daughter, Cinda, and sons, Henrik and Lars. This was about a week or two ago. We were down in San Francisco for a birthday party for my mother-in-law and got all dressed up, and the kids had an absolute blast, so the bow ties and dresses were a big hit. We have a good time and just wanted to share with you what life is like on the other side here of the webinar recording. So this is where we live, Bend, Oregon. Used to live in San Francisco in the East Bay in Lafayette, and over the course of about 7 years lived in the East Bay, took BART every day downtown to work at some wonderful SaaS companies right in the heart of downtown San Francisco and Soma area. And then almost a year and a half ago, made the move up to Bend, and it's about an hour flight direct from SFO, and is an absolutely amazing place where we do things in the winter, like have some incredible skiing. We have Mount Bachelor is only 30 minutes away from our house here, and it provides some incredible outdoor recreation in the winter. And in the summertime, we get to float the river. So the Deschutes River runs right through the middle of town. That's an absolutely idyllic setting, and there is, no shortage of outdoor opportunities. If that's what you're into and you've never been to Bend, you got to check it out at some time, and feel free to drop me a line if you come into town. All right, so let's dig in. That's a little bit about me personally. Again, I always like for you to know something about me. I obviously can't know everything about you guys, but now you know a little bit more about me. And we'll get into who is this webinar for. So this webinar is really for the driven, the committed, the passionate, those of you who are not willing to settle for a job where you do the same thing day in and day out, month over month, year over year, and never question anything. This webinar is for those of you who have a drive to figure out what's next, who know that there's something better and that you're going to work towards, but you might not be 100% sure of how to get there. This is a very common theme when I talk to CSMs, both individuals as well as CS leaders and teams across the SaaS spectrum, everything in San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, and all other parts of the country, right? So if you're completely content with where you are and never questioning how you can grow personally or professionally, you're probably not going to get a lot out of this. If you're the flip side, where you're always looking to grow and looking for what the next angle is and where your next step should be, then absolutely this is for you. So my first question for you is simple. Are you the CEO of your career? And I deliberately made this to be a closed-ended yes or no question because I want you to take a second, reflect back right now, and answer the question. Write it down on a piece of paper in front of you. Write it down on your computer, wherever. Just yes or no. No explanation, no nothing else, just yes or no. Okay, I was faced with this question back one Saturday morning in grad school. They would have industry people from companies and leaders come in and talk to us, typically on Saturday mornings. So one Saturday morning I went to an event, and the gentleman up on the stage asked this question, and it literally stopped me in my tracks. And my answer at the time was no. I was not in control. I was not the CEO of my career at that time. And it was a very, very pivotal moment for me, which we'll get into in the next couple of slides, telling you about my background. But it was very important for me to recognize that as the CEO, you are the only one who can decide what is right for you. And at that time, I had to make the choice of, am I going to be in control, or am I going to let someone else be in control of my career? And I made the definitive choice right then and there that I was not willing to let someone else control my career. I was going to be in control. So now I'll tell you a little bit about me professionally. I've literally done almost every job from being a software engineer to sales rep, and I failed miserably at those ends of the spectrum. Right? So I love technical things, and that's how I ended up going down the software engineer path. But I was a horrendous programmer. I couldn't do it. It just did not work. I went the complete other side of the spectrum because I love interacting with people and building relationships and solving problems. And the other end was, some of the greatest salespeople, they say, they're trained by Xerox. I went to work for Xerox. I went door to door selling copiers. I went through Xerox's training, and I still failed miserably, right? And all the while in between those, I had done things and dabbled in marketing, dabbled in solution engineering, dabbled in sales engineering. And really this first part of my career, I was trying to figure out, where do I fit in the professional world? I knew there had to be a place where my skills and my drive and my passion for doing what I love fit, but I just couldn't find it. So I literally bounced around to a lot of different organizations and a lot of different organizations within one company to try to figure out where I fit. So I went back to school, and I got an MBA in management and organizational behavior. And this was the first time where I saw a light turn on with passion and alignment and just incredible drive that I had never felt before. And it was because the material that I was studying was so closely aligned with who I was personally that I couldn't help but be excited and think about it all the time. And that was invigorating. In 2012, I became a professional coach. This was kind of the next evolution for me after my MBA. And I've got logged over 400 hours of training and one-on-one client work to date. So my number one strength, for those of you who are familiar with StrengthsFinder, is called Maximizer. What it means is that I see strengths in others oftentimes before they see it in themselves, and bringing other people's awareness to their strengths gives me tremendous satisfaction. So when I work with clients today, when I worked with clients as a CSM, when I work with anyone, or even my personal relationships, right, I'm always focused on how can I help this person develop and grow and move on, right? So these were some of the progression steps that I went through as I continued to build and find out what I was really most talented to do. So after grad school, I gotten into my first role as a CSM, and I was so excited, literally bouncing off the walls, because I finally found the place in the professional world where I fit. It was there in that CS role where I had to use technical skills from my software engineering side. I had to use relationship building skills from my sales side. I had to use some marketing. I had to use some sales engineering. And I had to put all this together to serve the needs of a client, right? I truly am built to serve. I will always put other people's needs ahead of my own. It's what I love to do. So because of my alignment and passion and prior experience, I was able to escalate from CSM to team lead to director and then to VP in 2.5 years, right? This was because I was perfectly primed at the time when the opportunity struck, and I'll tell you some strategies we're going to get into here which allowed me to do that incredibly well. within a year after becoming VP at an early stage startup, I worked myself out of the job. I literally was not needed on a day-to-day basis because the foundation we put in place from scratch for CS was what I call running on rails. My team knew exactly what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and how to report, how to interact, and all the pieces of the puzzle. We had eliminated firefighting from our vocabulary because we knew exactly the structure and the foundation that we put in place, and we knew it all served our purpose of why our organization was there. So after my VP job, I had a very frank conversation with the CEO, and I said, you don't need me here anymore. I'm quite bored. Right? If I'm not building something new every day, I'm going to get pretty bored. And I said, you don't need me. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I took a little bit of time to think about it, and I had two options. One, I could go get another VP of CS job. Would have been very straightforward and, just kind of continued on in the same thing, done the same thing for another company I did for there. Or I could go out on my own, leverage my passion for customer success, leverage my expertise and the wins I've had, and help other people through consulting. That's what I chose to do. That's why I started Glide Consulting in January of 2015, coming up on 2 years. Hard to imagine, but it's been an awesome ride, and I wouldn't rather be doing anything else like right now. So, brief bit about Glide Consulting. I've worked with everyone from early stage startups with 0 to 5 or 10 CSMs, all the way up to Oracle Marketing Cloud, which is a couple hundred-person customer success organization. Our expertise is really in taking customers through the 4 Ps framework: people, purpose, process, and platform. And when we put clear definition around each of those 4 Ps, then we're delivering predictability in renewals and expansions. And that's what everybody is after. If you're ever interested, or your team, or you think your leader might be interested, in benchmarking your team against the best in customer success, against the 4 Ps framework to see where you stack up today and where you might have some holes. One of the product offerings that I have is called the Customer Success Strategy Power Up, and there's a full explanation of it on my website, which you can find there on the services page at glideconsultingllc.com. Okay, a lot of questions come up when I tell people my background and progress and history and how fast I progressed, what I've done since in the last 2 years. And they say, Nils, how on earth did you do all of that? And I tell them I did it with 2 things. Did it with a mindset, and I did it with an investment philosophy. So first, the mindset. My mindset is to never settle and to always push. This permeates every part of my life. This permeates every part of my professional, personal, relationships, etc. I'm never satisfied with just keeping things the way they are. If it's working, that's great. Let's figure out how to make it work even better. That's the fun part, right? Just coasting just does not work for me, right? So in those jobs in the early days of my career, I spent 7 years going to different organizations and different teams within companies trying to find where I fit because I was never willing to settle for a job I dreaded and hated just because it was a job and I had a paycheck. My salary and income was swung wildly, going from nothing all the way up to pretty decent amount, all the way down, back down to near nothing, and everything in between. But my focus was on finding where I fit and finding where I could add value. My investment philosophy, to complement this, is that investing in yourself is the only investment guaranteed to pay a return. 100% guarantee on this. Anything you put into yourself, you will be able to leverage and you will get a return on. I am a firm believer in that 100%. So firm that I'm going to share with you exactly how much money I have spent personally on myself in my professional career here on the next slide. So from 2000 to 2007, this was the first part of my career where I was exploring everything from the software engineering to the sales rep side. The amount of money I personally invested in myself was negligible. Right? I bought books. Might have attended a seminar or something, but it was basically negligible. I was so focused on trying to bounce around from one place to the next to figure out what was next that I really wasn't taking a solid look at who I was and being in control, back to the CEO question. Okay? From 2007 to 2016, so I started grad school in 2007, to present day 2016, I have personally invested about $100,000 of my own money in myself. Right? This involves, yes, I went to grad school. This involved the courses I've done. This involved becoming a professional coach. This involved setting up various businesses in order to turn that value that I've created into something that someone will pay for, right? So $100,000 of money of my own, right? I have zero debt today. This is not debt that I took out. This has all been repaid thanks to the ROI. So what's the ROI? It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. I cannot tell you how many stories I have of going through a training or going through a specific course where I've taken a learning from that course, paired it with my experience and background in CS, and then come up with something unique that is specific to this industry and how that then has benefited my clients to the point where they will pay me, right? It is tremendous. So if anyone out there is waiting for someone to, i.e. your company, to reimburse you for a course or reimburse you for going for some training for a day or whatever it is, something there, right? Don't wait for them to do it. Do it yourself. If they pay you back, great. If they don't, it doesn't matter. You will get a greater return on any investment you make in yourself. Do not let someone reimbursing you stop you from educating yourself. Okay, so now let's transition and get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today, which is the 3 strategies to earn your next promotion and advance your career in CS. Number 1, set expectations because clarity shall set you free. Number 2, take control by planning instead of reacting. And number 3, master your time by automating your actions. And we're going to go into depth in each one of these. So first up, set expectations because clarity shall set you free. Okay, what happens when you don't set expectations appropriately? You get uncertainty, right? It is a proven fact, and you can test this out at any time of the day with anybody you're ever working with or next to or whatever. When you are not clear about what you are going to do or what you expect somebody else to do, there will be uncertainty. And what does uncertainty lead to? It leads to questions, which lead to doubt, which lead to fear, right? It leads to missed opportunities. It leads to you having a bad reputation. And if all those things happen, those are contributing factors to churn, right? And it leads ultimately to you not earning a promotion. So let me give you a simplest example, not directly related to CS, but kind of everybody's been in this seat. You're on an airplane. You boarded the plane. Everybody's sitting down. Seats are buckled, seatbelts buckled, ready to go. Captain comes on and says, "Hey, thanks for joining us today. Looks like we're going to be a little bit delayed here. I'm going to check back with air traffic control, and I'll get back to you." So let's say now 5 minutes goes by, and the captain doesn't come back. 10 minutes goes by. Captain doesn't come back. 15 minutes goes by. Captain doesn't come back because he hasn't heard from air traffic control, so he doesn't think he has anything to tell you, right? Well, what happens? You start to question what's going wrong with the plane. What's wrong with our schedule? Am I going to be able to make my kids' soccer game? Wherever it is you're going, right? And have you ever seen the amount of murmuring and talking that starts as soon as the captain stops, and it just there's a void and silence, and then everybody starts questioning what happened? Versus captain coming on after 5 minutes saying, "You know what? I got an update. There is no update. I'm sticking with you. Okay? I know exactly what's going on. I know what to expect." Another 5 minutes, same update, right? Completely different experience. Just by that simple little bit of setting expectations and letting other people know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. Okay? So let's take a look at this in the context of customer success. Here's one technique to set expectations with your clients, with your internal parties, with your boss from the beginning. I call this the CSM stump speech. Okay? You might, so I'm taking the stump speech terminology from the political world, where no doubt everybody's been inundated with the videos of candidates and the debate stage and all that good stuff lately. You've seen this stump speech in action, right? A stump speech is something that the candidates use that outlines their core values and their platform of exactly what they stand for. So they want everybody to know that, and they have to say it over and over and over again. So in an interview, An interviewer will ask them a question, and they'll kind of answer the question a little bit, and then they'll steer right back to their stump speech so they can make sure that they repeat their message and everybody knows crystal clear where they stand on the specific issue they want them to stand on. Okay? So that is a great model for us to use within customer success. So think about this. How did you introduce yourself and set expectations about your role with a recent customer? You might have, this might be a customer where they were transitioned to you, new account, or maybe it was somebody you took in post-sale right away, so you were starting the relationship from scratch. Okay? 9 times out of 10, here's what I hear when I ask this question to CSMs and the teams that I work with. Hi, my name is X. I'm a CSM here. I'm assigned to your account, and I'm going to make sure you get value with our product. Okay? That is boring. It is boring. It's not memorable. Nobody cares. And you left a whole lot of questions about what it is you do, and you're just a quote-unquote CSM at a company and assigned to them. Okay? So the key here is, how are you going to convince, in a very short amount of time, that client of exactly what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and the value that you're going to provide to them? That's what a stump speech does. So you're going to have to do the work to take this back and think about, how do I really present myself? If I had 30 seconds to a minute with somebody brand new, how am I going to get across the things that are most important to me and build rapport with them so that we're all clear and they feel like they are in good hands with me? That's what an incredible CSM stump speech does. So that's specific for a CSM or senior CSM or somebody who is on the front lines with clients day to day. Now, what about a stump speech for a director or VP? Let's say you're manager, director, looking to director. If you're director looking to VP, does it still apply? Absolutely. Because the slight shift is, what is it that you are constantly focused on with your team or your department, right? Somebody asks, what are you working on? You don't say a bunch of projects and this and that. You say the exact same thing that you've defined already, and you come away looking polished, presented, and that you have your stuff together. That translates into tremendous confidence, completely removes uncertainty from the equation, and will give you a huge leg up compared to everyone else in the surrounding area. So that's number 1. Set expectations, because clarity shall set you free. Number 2, we're going to dig into, is take control by planning instead of reacting. And this one's going to hit home with, I know, an awful lot of you, as it does for me reflecting back on some of my time in the seat as a CSM. Okay, so what happens when you don't take control and plan? Firefighting, right? We're all very familiar with this. I know what it's like firsthand. You guys live this on a day-to-day basis. It is the single most common theme I see across all CS teams and all SaaS and all the businesses I talk to. Firefighting. Okay? So what does firefighting lead to? What's the real impact? Well, have you ever felt any of these? Do a gut check with yourself and see where they land. Frustration. You can't get ahead. Lack of control. Right? You spin your wheels. You feel, quote-unquote, busy, but you're not really productive. Right? And the busy one is one that comes up all the time. And CSMs and CS leaders say, I'm so busy. I wish I could be proactive, but I just can't. Right? And whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So I'm going to give you a strategy here in a second to address this point specifically. But I want to drill in on the reality that firefighting is actually leading to for yourself, as these things, some of these listed right here. But the perception from your superiors, the people who you might be working towards to earn that next promotion, they're going to see this. They're going to see lack of control. They're going to see busy. They're not going to see productive, right? It is up to you to take control. Your environment, your customers, your other teams internally will never enable you to do this. You have to decide that you are not going to do these things anymore. So don't expect to earn a promotion if you are constantly firefighting. If you're in that state, toss it out the window until you address it. And here is one specific strategy, technique, to control and plan. I want you to create an account plan for your most important accounts. You might be saying, an account plan? That sounds like what the sales team talks about. What are you talking about? Well, I take this from, much like the stump speech from the political world, I take the account plan from the sales world, right? And the reason why is that the best salespeople are masterful, absolutely masterful, at taking a prospect from the very first introduction and very first touch of theirs all the way through to a deal close. And they systematically move that prospect one step further each time they focus on them, right? So they know the beginning point, they know the end destination, and then they know the steps they have to take in order to get them from one to the other. This is what I'm talking about for CS, okay? So what does an account plan for customer success do? It answers one simple question. Where do I need this account to be 3, 6, 9, or 12 months from now? Okay? And then it holds the actions to take to move towards those goals. So we're using the same principle that the masterful salespeople do to move people through their funnel. And we're talking about, I have goals in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and I've decided where I think this account needs to be. And then I can figure out what are the actions to do that. And then I can figure out on a daily and weekly basis, what do I have to do to continue to work towards those actions, right? So let's say, for example, in 3 months you've got an existing account that just had an executive sponsor change, okay? Where do I need this account to be in 3 months? Well, I need to have a much more solid relationship with the new executive sponsor, okay? That's a goal for 3 months from now. Cool, okay? What are the actions that I could take to move this account towards that goal? Well, number one, I need to get introduced to the executive sponsor, and then you can think of all the different ways that you could do that and who you might need to engage to help in that. Number two, I need to have a meeting with the executive sponsor to understand who they are, their background, their priorities, and how we're going to help and support them. And then number three might be, maybe it's a personal face-to-face after that initial introduction to actually be on site if this is a high-value customer and actually establish real in-person rapport, okay? So that act of having clarity from your point of view on what you are going to do with this account, specifically for those time periods, removes uncertainty, just like we were talking about before, right? If you present that as your attack plan for these accounts to your boss or whoever you review your accounts with, I guarantee the reception on the other side is, thank God you have this, X person has this together. I feel comfortable with them that they know what they're doing and I can provide input, but they're driving this. Incredibly important to drive. Okay, if you do not know where your accounts, and this, probably caveat for the people who might have a couple hundred accounts on a one-to-many basis, but medium, high touch, where you're individually involved with accounts. If you don't know where they need to be in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, any road will get you there, and everything will be a priority. Right? So one of the keys to exiting the firefighting mode is removing yourself from having to treat everything as a priority, and you can only do that by knowing what the destination is of what you're working towards. But again, you were the one who designed it, nobody else. So what about an account plan or something for a director or a VP? Does it still apply? Absolutely. Think about it like this. You could rename that plan as a team or department plan and answer the same question. Where do I need my team or my department to be in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, right? What are the things that I need to do in order to move my team or department towards that state over 3, 6, 9, 12 months, right? This is not a crazy, spend 3 weeks trying to come up with this exercise, right? You'll be surprised at how fast you can do this because you know the answer to the question. You might just not have been asking yourself those questions yet. So when a director looking to VP or manager looking to director is talking about the status of his or her department with other leaders within the organization and has a very clear plan of where he is getting the department to, how he's going to measure that, and what the steps are he's taking, again, you remove uncertainty. You are seen as someone who has their stuff together and who knows exactly what to do to get from point A to point B. That is huge, huge value. Okay, that was number 2. Take control by planning instead of reacting. Number 3, master your time by automating your actions. Last spring, we surveyed like 700 or 800 CSMs, and the number one challenge facing the CSMs across the board was time and managing your time, which is why I wanted to include this key component as a third strategy. So we're going to talk about how to master your time by automating your action. So what happens when you don't master your time by automating your actions? You guessed it, you waste your most important asset. Single thing that everyone has exactly the same amount of, and the context is all the same. But what you do with it is different. So what does wasting time lead to? It leads to inefficiency. It leads to more work. This is one of the killers. Letting a task fill the amount of time you have instead of the time it should take. And not being able to focus on the important things. Right? Now, time management has been around as a concept and the topic forever, right? There's a million books out there. There's a million courses, a million things. So what does that specifically mean in the context of customer success? How can you leverage specific strategies and techniques to improve your mastery of your time? I'm going to share those with you in just a second. So I've got 4 here that I'm going to go through. And some of these are quick hits, which you can implement immediately following this if you don't have anything related to this already. Technique number 1, use Calendly or something similar to create different links for your calendar accessibility. Okay, so here's typical flow when a customer says, hey, can we talk, or you're trying to set up a meeting. Hey, are you available on Thursday at 4? Yeah, I'm cool then. Okay, good. Okay, that's letting basically the customer's schedule usually dictates yours, and you want to serve their needs, so you accommodate their schedule, and you end up with meetings all over the place. Okay, here's how the person who's going to get their next promotion approaches that same problem. Number 1, I have defined that the block from 10 a.m. Pacific to 3 p.m. Eastern, or 10 a.m. Pacific to 3 p.m. Pacific, is dedicated to customer calls. I have a Calendly link of which is called Customer Calls, and anytime I need to book a call with a client, I send them this link, and they see the open slots that I have between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. This ensures that I account for anybody in different time zones and is a time that I am dedicated to this, and these are the things that I'm going to do in that time period. Right? That is control. Right? So you need to define the times that you are going to be available for the different categories of tasks that you have, client calls, internal meetings, etc., instead of treating your calendar like an open board of which anybody can book any time and leave you basically without any control. I have about 7 of these links that I use, and it is incredibly liberating because people are happy to choose a time that works for them when they can see your schedule and you don't have to be involved. So spend the time to figure out when it is that you want to talk to clients, when you want to talk to internal teams on a regular basis, and use this way as a way to put up a barrier between yourself and them so you can protect your time. Number 2, technique. Automate your common emails with Text Expander. Text Expander is a wonderful tool. It has both Mac and Windows support. And you can have your most common emails, sentences, phrases, links accessible by any key combination you want. Okay, so how many times have you copied and pasted your conference line details, which you hold in an Evernote note, into a meeting request, right? You're going to put a meeting request in, you go to Evernote, you find the note, you copy it, you paste it in. It seems pretty straightforward. But if you're doing that over and over and over again, it adds up, right, with the amount of meetings that I know you guys are running on a weekly basis. And it's a complete waste of time. So I've got Text Expander set up with probably 25 to 30 of my most common emails and responses, sentences, openings, closings of emails, schedule calendar availability, links to calendar availability, and I can very quickly, with a keystroke or 2, drop in anything I need without ever having to retype it again. So the bottom line here is to not waste time doing the same thing over and over, even though it doesn't seem like much time. It is a waste, and there are tools that can help you accelerate that tremendously. Number 3 technique for mastering your time and automation. Build templates for your regular customer engagements. Okay? We all have to Customer success is built on process. We have to run the same thing over and over again with our clients very consistently from one to the next, right? But if you're spending time preparing for a meeting and creating a new deck every time, you're wasting your time, right? You want to standardize as much as possible into a core template and then be able to customize that. This applies to emails, it applies to meeting setup, applies to documentation, the steps you take somebody through, and the emails you have to send when you first onboard them to get them introduced to the various pieces of the puzzle. Right? You have complete control over this, but you have to take a look at the work that you are doing differently than you are today. Right? You need to take a look at that work through the lens of what can I automate? What can I reduce? What have I done the exact same over and over? To build these templates for the common things you do and then customize them for each scenario. That is where your time is best spent, not in the creation. Number 4, technique for mastering your time in automation. Sign up for a virtual time mastery course. Right? Back to the investment in you. I actually created a course, video-based course, self-paced, called CSM Time Mastery after we received that tremendous amount of information from CSM saying that time was the single biggest challenge that they had. Right? This is specific to CSMs. Over the course of a month, take you through some exercises and specific guidance and tips and strategies to help you master your time. Now, this is not the only time mastery course out there, of course. There are many others available. Find one that's right for you. For example, I just paid a couple $100 the other day to sign up for an audio course from Tony Robbins called The Time of Your Life, which is all about how to master your time. And it's a bigger picture perspective on the life side. But recognize that the reason I did that was to keep learning, right? I created CSM Time Mastery, but I guarantee there's something I'm going to learn in this new audio course that I'm going through around the concept of how to master your time that I can pull in and then customize and make specific to CS, right? Never stop, even though I already created the course. So that was technique number 4. Do the same techniques apply to directors and VPs? Oh, yes, absolutely. Even more so, to the point where time is of the essence, and the more direct reports you have and the more requirements and requests you have from different parts of the organization, your executives, your board, your other leaders within the org, right? The more important it is for you to be efficient. And when as a leader, when you see efficiency and see control, uncertainty is gone and trust and confidence is built. That's what you need to get to. That's what you need to exude. That's what you need people to see in order to believe that you might be ready for that next step and that next promotion. So just quick recap. We've covered 3 strategies to earn your next promotion and advance your career in customer success. Number 1, set expectations, because clarity shall set you free. Number 2, and in that expectations, we talked about the CSM stump speech, something you can create today. Number 2, take control by planning instead of reacting. We talked about the account plan. Where does your accounts need to be 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now? Is that documented? Is that clear? Do you have actions to move them from one state to the next? You can do that today also. Number 3, master your time by automating your actions. Right? Calendly link to protect your calendar. Text expander to automate repetitious text entry and creation. PowerPoint deck templatization, the common things you do, find the common threads, extrapolate that up, make it a template, and then customize from there. And 4, sign yourself up for a time mastery course in some form or fashion. So coming back to the biggest picture of all, you are the CEO of your career. You are the only one that can decide where you will go. There is nobody more qualified. There is nobody who has more suggestions or guidance or expertise to share or direction of what you should and should not do than yourself. Okay? You are the CEO of your career. And when you take this to heart and believe it as it is 100% true, you will view the work that you do and the education that you get and the investment in yourself differently than you ever have before. This is the pivotal point, as I mentioned before, for me prior to my MBA and getting into grad school and getting started and using that presentation that Saturday morning, where I was not the CEO of my career. and I bounced around all over the place. But from the moment that I decided to dig into that, I've accomplished tremendous things, had passion and excitement, and love every single day of work that I do. That is the key, and when others see that passion and excitement, they will want to know more and know how you did it, and there will be opportunities that are presented that you wouldn't even see today. So with that, wraps up the presentation part of the webinar today. I'm going to turn it back over to Matilda. So if you have questions, please enter them in the box. After Matilda gives you a little overview on Amity, we're going to come back for Q&A, so I'll definitely address your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nils. Fantastic presentation. I learned so much, and I'm not even a CSM, so that was really great. We're getting some great comments in the chat box and already a couple of questions. So amazing. As you said, now would be a great time for everyone to send us their questions, and then Nils will take some time to answer all of them. And I know that a lot of you have questions, and maybe they're very specific to their situations, but if you don't know who to ask, Nils is definitely the right person. So I'm just going to take 30 seconds of your time to just tell you a little bit about Amity. I know some of you guys already know about us and what we do, but in short, Amity is a customer success technology provider. So we provide CSMs with a platform that helps them be proactive and better care for their customers and reduce churn and things like that. So we have a website, of course, getamity.com, and you can request a demo, and we'd love to talk to you and see how we can help. And I see already some questions coming in. So Nils, do you want to jump back in?
Absolutely. Yeah, so got a couple questions here. So let me just, no particular order here. Is there, Dave asks, is there a specific tool that you use to lay out the account plan and track the progress? Honestly, at the very beginning, Dave, if you had this in place before, don't worry about the tool. Just worry, like literally create a Google Doc, create a spreadsheet, doesn't so much matter. What's most important is that you have clarity on the end goal, that you spend 20 minutes thinking about where do I need this account to be in 3 months and what are the things I can do to there. I mean, think of bulleted lists. Here's the high-level goal in the bullet. Sub-bullets are here's the actions that I can take to do that, and you can keep that updated. Ultimately, if you have a CS platform like Amity or others, perhaps there's a way to work that in, but that is not the most important thing when getting started with this. Julia also had a great question about, Oh, awesome. Julia, great to see you just downloaded Calendly, and you're going to try out that technique. Wonderful. There was one about a book. Oh, yes, Sarah. Thanks for the presentation. If you had to recommend one book to help grow your career in CS, what would it be? One of my favorites is called Working with Emotional Intelligence. It's by a gentleman named Daniel Goleman. He was the original researcher and person who coined the term emotional intelligence and brought to light the fact that IQ, where previously, your success people thought was dependent upon your IQ, how smart you were and how fast you could solve problems, etc. However, what Goleman hypothesized was that actually IQ is important, but even more important is EQ, emotional quotient. How effectively can you work with other people? And in the nature of customer success, where you are responsible for getting things done through other people, there is no single more important asset in your toolbox than emotional intelligence. The more you understand it, the more you can understand other people, and the more successful you can be by being able to work effectively with others. So when I look for CSMs or I'm looking for a leader for one of my clients, or I'm doing some work with them on the training side, emotional intelligence always comes at the top of the list because it is absolutely 100% required to be successful in this role. Let me scroll through there's a couple other questions here. Scott said, can you explain what a stump speech is in a little bit more detail? Yeah, so Scott, a stump speech really has to hit on a couple key points. It has to, one, introduce you, of course. Number two, it has to inspire confidence in the receiving party, so your client in this case. Number three, I like that it has a personal tone. So, for example, I won't give you my whole stump speech from before when I was a CSM, but I am Norwegian. That's where my name comes from. That's where my heritage is. Second generation, born in the U.S., have a lot of family in Norway, And one of the things that my family does exceptionally well is kind of the built-to-serve mentality and the desire to take care of others. It is part of our culture. It is part of how we are wired. It's part of how I was brought up. And I used to include that as part of my stump speech. So when I got on the phone with a new client and told them about who I was and what my role was and how I was going to add value to them, I would also tell them about my background. I would tell them that I was Norwegian, and one of the things that Norwegians do is take care of each other, and that's why I'm in this role, right? So they get to know a little bit about me personally. They get to build a little bit of confidence knowing that I have a lot of experience taking care of other people, and this is something that I do personally as, just as me, not necessarily just as something that I have to do with the job. Feel free to follow up with me in the email if you'd like. You guys can hit me up at nils@glideconsultingllc.com as well. All right, going down, we hit the tool. We talked about the book, Calendly, good. How does one approach management who have hired to build CS but do not fully understand CS? Levi. Yes, this is a common situation, Levi. One of the ways, of course, is to get some outside help and shed some perspective. But some of the biggest challenges I've seen in organizations that I've had conversations with or worked with has been the buy-in from customer success from the leadership ranks. And something for you just to be brutally honest is that if the leadership in your organization is not bought into what customer success is or how it works, it will be extremely difficult for you to be successful in your role. And I'm not saying impossible. It will just be difficult, right? There are going to be other roadblocks and barriers, things that other people won't have to deal with, again, because you're always fighting an uphill battle to justify yourself. It happens across the board all over the place. And this is the result of CS just being a relatively new industry. So unfortunately, Levi, there's no one perfect silver bullet here, but I would highly advise that there is a way for your leadership, or one, for you to test whether or not your leadership is 100% on board, or they just are a little foggy about the definition, because that's an important distinction there. If they know the definition and they're not on board, then you're kind of in trouble, and I'd probably get out of there if I was in there myself. And I choose not to work with the companies who just don't get it from the top. It's just pointless. But if they understand the fundamental concept but don't have clarity on what it means inside their organization, then there's an opportunity to refine that and bring some clarity to that, of which then you can build on top of. Okay. Nikhil, you are currently looking at jumping into a CSM as a career. Operations and systems analyst with several years of customer service experience. What can I do to get my foot in the door as a CSM job seeker and set myself up for success? This is a great one, Nikhil. It points on a number of things that come up when people are looking to get into customer success but have not been a CSM before. Very common theme. It happens. Okay. Number one piece of advice here is that one, it's up to you, and number two is you have to figure out what are the core assets that you have and experiences you've had in your various other disparate roles, and what do they mean to a customer success role. So, for example, back before I got into the CSM role, and I had my time at Xerox, right, selling and trying to build relationships with customers, in the interviews, it was like, well, you've never been a CSM. How would you approach building a relationship with customers? I leveraged my expertise having been in a sales role where that was my only job, right? And I said, this is how I think it applies to CS. When I'm a CSM, I have to build a very strong relationship from the very beginning to inspire confidence and ensure that they know that I'm going to drive value for their organization. I am very well equipped to do that because that's what I had to do in the sales role. Right? So I took that piece, which was unrelated to CS before, but I spun it to say, here's that element of that role. I didn't focus on the role. I just said an element of that role. Here's how I applied it and will apply it in customer success. So, Nikhil, recommendation here is take a step back. So if you've been in operations, systems, and you've been in customer service and experience, figure out what are the common themes, the aspects of the role that you did, the things you love to do and the characteristics that you have and the skills you have, but spin them into how those would benefit in a CS role and how they would provide value to the organization. Built to sell people will naturally put their needs or the organization's needs ahead of other people. Now, it's not the case that one of these is better than the other. They are both absolutely critical, but they have to be used and complemented together to make the greatest benefit for the organization. So when we're talking about relationship and ownership of commercial terms and relationship of CSM, a lot of people try to put it all together and say, well, you're closest to the customer, therefore you get this revenue and this quota, and you got to upsell and whatnot. I think it just conflicts. It's conflicting with the built-to-serve versus built-to-sell personality, whereas you could get more mileage. Organization could, in turn, have happier customers and make more money if you would split those roles up. So absolutely, again, just like with Nikhil's point, Clint, the sales, the elements of what you did and made you good in your job as a salesperson are absolutely relatable and transferable to customer success. My question for you is, who would you rather naturally put first, yourself or other people? And again, it's not a bad thing if it's yourself. That's okay. The best salespeople that I know are built to sell and will put their organization's needs ahead of others, which makes them incredible negotiators. They hold the line and they love it. I hold the line and I hate it. It just doesn't feel right. Okay, Sophie, we got how to spread this kind of approach when you're a dotted line manager. Sophie, I'm not 100% sure if you are the dotted line manager or if you have a dotted line manager. If you have a dotted line manager, again, I think, I guess either way, coming back to the CEO of your career, you're in control. You're the one who decides, right? Whether or not you report to somebody on the dotted line or full line, just let it go, okay? Focus on yourself. Focus on your team if you are the manager. Focus on that account plan or team or department plan, right, and drive that through. Okay, more opportunities will come from that rather than worrying about whether or not the reporting structure is correct or what those pieces are. Vipul, can you talk more about the time mastery course? Sure. There's a full page description with some very specific steps, including an anecdote or a clip excerpt on our glideconsultingllc.com. Just go to the services page and click on CSM Time Mastery. But in a nutshell, it is a self-paced, 1 month long, video-based course with specific exercises to complement. So the video is me taking you through a series of content with structure and exercises to enter into the learning management system. And each week you go through a different module and we tackle different things. So everything from the psychological aspect of what has held you back from mastering your time in the very beginning, because we've got to get that straight before we actually introduce any strategies for how to measure your time, to identifying where you should spend your time to contribute highest to yourself, your clients, and your company, to the specific tools that I use on a day-to-day basis to help master my time. So that's a little bit about that. Again, you can find more on the website. According to you, Nils, Hitesh, what are the top 5 qualities every CSM should possess? I've got a couple blog posts out there that cover this topic. And just in a nutshell, high level, I'd say, absolutely the ability to have an immediate impact. So if I were going to interview somebody and they get on the phone and they have very low energy and low voice and not really engaged, they immediately fall off the list, right? Because we do 90% of our work on the phone. You got to be able to engage people right away. Number 2, the ability to work effectively with anyone. This is where the emotional intelligence piece comes in. Number 3, the ability to play a consultant type of role where you are comfortable asking more questions than you have answers. Number 4, the ability to ask powerful questions. And number 5, the ability to listen deep at a very deep level. Again, I talk about all of these in our ebook called Built to Serve. Hitesh, yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. And Scott, in trying to control your time, how do you handle schedule conflicts when the only time the internal teams are available is during your customer calling times? Scott, that's up to you. Well, I don't mean that in a flippant way. What I mean is there are going to be times when you have to hold the line, right? And it's okay to make an exception here and there. That's okay. Like, that's going to happen. But you get to choose when you make that exception, right? You get to choose when it's okay to schedule over something you had already dedicated and promised because it is critically important. And if this doesn't happen, then 10 other things won't happen. That's okay, right? But if that's the norm where you're consistently letting that go to where the point where your clients now have to go a day or two out because of that, then that's not healthy, right? And then you're in less control than you were before. So keep in mind, your control, your time, totally up to you. Jennifer, how do you implement the 3 keys to success and still grow your career, even if your company doesn't fully understand or support your growth as a CSM? Go outside, Jennifer, on the learning part, right? So don't rely on your company for career growth. Rely on yourself. Rely on your company to help support you in where you want to go, but you got to do the work first to define what that is. Okay? So, for example, let's take two different people having a conversation with their manager. One says, "What's my career path here?" Kind of a terrible question. Just if you're doing that today or if you had that recently and you don't offer anything else, stop. Okay, option number 2, or person number 2 says, "Hey, you know what, I feel like I'm constantly firefighting and I'm really struggling on the time management side in this role. I know it's a common theme in CS. I've done some research and I'd really like to make some progress in how I manage my time and figure out how I can do this better. Would you, manager, happen to know any resources that are specific to customer success or other time management courses that I could attend, and could you help me with some of that if you know anything here?" Right? Ooh. Completely different response and feeling from the manager that somebody is actually taking control, right? So again, don't rely on your company to lead you on a career path. Choose your path and enlist your company to help you. All right, Scott, last question. As the lead of your CS team, do you believe that CSM should have a sales quota? No, I do not. This is the built to serve versus built to sell mentality and split. I'm totally fine with CS owning a revenue number, retention number, et cetera, dollars, but the function of having quota and delivering or negotiating commercial terms and ensuring those things happen falls into the responsibility of someone who is built to sell, even if they report to the CS team. That's okay, but it's not the CSM, right? Exceptional CSMs will deliver and make sure that absolutely everything is possible, everything that is possible is done to make sure that renewal and expansion happens without an issue. But they are not the ones to negotiate and have those. I would, however, include a team-based incentive around a revenue goal. So the incentive there is identifying upsell opportunities, not necessarily closing them, which is the quota piece. And with that, we are right at 11 o'clock Pacific time. I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your comments, and you are welcome. One of my favorite areas to dig into. Last thing is we've got a weekly newsletter that we send out every Friday. You can join it by going to our website, glideconsultingllc.com. At the bottom of the page, there's a link to join. We'd love to have you on there and share continued advice. And Matilda, I think that wraps it up.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Nils. Amazing presentation. And thanks so much to everyone who came and for all of your guys' engagement, all of your questions and comments. It's really great. So our next webinar is actually going to be on the 23rd of November, and we'll be sending out an email soon, but if you want to save the date, 23rd of November. And thank you so much, Nils, and thank you so much, everyone. Thanks. Have a nice day.
Bye.